Hello, welcome back to Behind the Faders, the live sound channel. Today I want to talk about percussions. To be honest, I wasn't planning on making a video about percussions, simply because you don't come across them so often. At least I don't. But I got the question in two different coaching courses recently, so I thought, why not? I talked about percussions in the context of an orchestra, but then that's mainly like kettle drums and then maybe a few toys. But I never talked about percussions in a band. And when it comes to miking percussions, of course, there are several options, pretty much like on drums. I even remember back in the 90s, I was on a tour as a guy responsible for miking. It was a big tour, and there were a lot of members in the band, including a big percussion setup. And back then, the large format consoles had 40 channels, so we were running out of channels at a point. So we couldn't afford to close mic all the components of that huge percussion set. So what we ended up doing is we took two AKJ gooseneck mics and attached them to the wrists of the player. I can't remember, honestly, how that sounded, because obviously you have the same EQ, the same gain, the same everything for all the different components of the percussion kit. So the same for a conga and a crash cymbal. I don't know. I think I saw that again, but I don't think I will recommend it. I don't know. It's just one way you can do it. Then, depending on the kind of band, the kind of stage and environment and stage volume and all that, you might get away with two overheads, capturing the entire percussion kit. However, I never do that because I like the sound of close-mic'd bongos and congas, for example. It's this intimacy that they have when they are close-mic'd. And I will use, you can treat them pretty much like tom-toms. You can try to attach a clip mic to them, which is not always easy. So I usually just grab a good old SM57 and maybe then for larger congas, something like a 421 on a stand. And EQing-wise, I will not do a lot to them. Usually I just boost a little, around 6K or so, to get this top end going. Sometimes, depending on the instrument, that doesn't do too much, then you have to get a little bit lower. But then you have this attack. And I will send it through a nice plate reverb. I really like the way that sounds. Then you might have chimes, which I just pick up with the condenser mic from the back, pointing straight at it with a low cut. That's it. Then most of the time there will be a little table with some toys on it, like a shaker, maybe, might know these eggs filled with sand or something. And for all these toys, I will just set up an overhead in a position like in front of the player so he can comfortably use his toys in near those microphones. If you're lucky, you have a percussion player who has experience with being mic'd, so he even knows the distance he should have to that microphone with his different sort of toys. So mixing percussions is not, I wouldn't call it demanding, but you have to watch it. You have to keep an eye on it because there are just so many different things going on all the time. And to make that sit in the mix nicely, you just have to watch it. And of course there's other components. There could also be octabands, which you mic from underneath, rototoms, which you can also mic from the back with a 57 or whatever you have. If you want to know about a special item that I didn't think of, just let me know. And then there is another very special percussion instrument, which is the cajon. And honestly, there was a time when I thought, next time I see a cajon, I just will throw up and leave. Because I came across it so often and I was tired of it. There are basically two different types of cajon players. One type is the drummer of a rock band that does an acoustic set. So instead of using his drum kit, he will use a cajon. And he will mostly use the cajon in a very simple way, like you would be banging on a table in a bar when one of his favorite songs is being played. The other type are the real cajon players, usually in a context of Spanish folk music. If you want to mic a cajon properly, you need two mics, because you can look at it like two mics representing kick and snare, if you will. So there's this hole in the back, so you can mic that hole like a kick drum, and you can also throw a boundary mic inside. And in fact, for the rock and roll type of cajon playing, that might even be enough. But like I said, to do it properly, you need another mic at the front of the instrument just to mic the fingers. And for the rock and roll type of a cajon players, just a 57 with even no EQ on it, just a low cut, that will do. However, for the real cajon players, they need to be treated a bit differently because they do a lot of artistic little things with their fingertips. And I learned that from a Spanish sound engineer. To get that across, you might rather use a condenser mic, and you need to crank the top end of that as much as you can without catching a feedback or something. Otherwise, you don't really get those details across. Well, and that's already it for today. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. And if you have a lot of questions, consider booking yourself a coaching call. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you still enjoy the content, please do it. Do that one click, which is totally free for you and helps me so much. I'll see you around. Bye-bye.